The Shawshank Redemption is an American drama movie that came out in 1994. It's about a successful banker named Andy Draw who is arrested for killing his wife and her lover. Andy is given 2 life sentences at Shawshank State Prison, which is well known because no one has ever made it out of there alive. There are a lot of people in the prison who have spent more time there than they have outside of it. The outside world has changed a lot while they've been in prison, but none of them know what's going on. Andy doesn't talk to anyone for a long time after he goes to Shawshank Prison. One day, he meets a prisoner named Red who brings illegal things into the prison. Like Andy, Red, who was given a life sentence and has been in jail for 20 years. Andy tells Red that he needs a rock hammer and a big poster of an actress named Rita Hayworth. Red asked Andy if he planned to use that hammer to dig a tunnel in the prison, since it would take him years to do so with a regular rock hammer, and it would be impossible to get out. After they became friends, Andy told Red that when the hammer came, he would understand. Red tells Andy that a group of prisoners called Sisters is looking for him. Andy asks Red to get him a hammer, so Red does. When the hammer arrives, Red thinks to himself, it'll take 600 years to dig a tunnel in the prison with this hammer. Andy likes to carve stones, and it looks like he wanted this hammer so he could keep doing it. Andy has started to get used to the other prisoners and life in the prison, but one night he ends up in the hands of those 3 prisoners who had been looking at him with dirty eyes even though he had been through a lot. Andy never told anyone else about it. Andy is covered in bruises, and his face is strangely quiet. One day, some inmates are picked to fix the roof. Red and Andy are in charge, too. Hadley is here, and she seems a little upset. He tells his friends that his brother left him $30,000, but that the money is useless because most of it will go to the government in the form of taxes. Andy and his friends also hear Hadley and her friends talk. Andy then goes to Hadley to ask him if he trusts him or not. When Hadley hears this, he gets very angry. He grabs Andy and brings him to the edge of the terrace, but before Hadley can throw him off, Andy tells him that the government has a rule that says a man can give his wife up to $60,000 in his lifetime. And since he was a banker before he went to jail, none of this money is subject to any kind of tax. Andy offers to help Hadley keep the money he inherited in a way that is legal. In return, Andy asked him to give him 3 beers for all of his friends. The next day, we all saw Andy's friends drinking beers on the terrace. Andy was able to help Hadley keep his $30,000 in this way. A few days after that, all of the prisoners in the jail watch a movie. Andy walks out of that room, and his attackers wait for him there. They want to hurt him again. But this time Andy fights back, and he gets hit hard in return. Andy gets hurt very badly and goes to the hospital. And the person who hurt Andy will be locked up alone for a week. When he goes back to his cell a week later, he finds that Officer Hadley has been there waiting for him. Hadley beats him so badly that he will never be able to walk again. A few days later, the jail's former warden, Samuel Norton, wants to check Andy's cell, but that's just a pretext. Officer Hadley told him that Andy saved him $30,000, so he wanted to meet Andy. Andy is holding a Bible, but the warden takes it away. Norton says that he believes in the Bible as well. Andy's jail cell is full of pictures of different actors, including a big poster of Rita Hayworth. The warden says that he usually doesn't let this happen, but there are times when he can make an exception. Norton likes Andy, so he invites him to his office and makes him an assistant librarian. The library is run by an old man who has been doing it for a long time, and Andy has to go to work. Andy gets more work as time goes on, so he hires his friend Red to help him. One day, Andy's boss, a librarian, puts a knife to a man's neck. The librarian's sentence has been dropped by the government, but he doesn't want to leave jail. He has been in prison for 50 years. His real life is what he does in prison. He thinks that if he kills someone, his punishment will get worse and he will stay in jail. But Andy and Red persuade the old librarian Brooks to let the man go, and Brooks says the man won't do anything wrong again after he gets out of jail. Brooks has a very strange feeling. In 50 years, a lot has changed in the outside world. When I was a kid, there was only one car on the road. Now there are a lot of cars. Brooks can't keep up with his fast-paced life, so he kills himself. Next, we see that Norton has started a new program in the Shawshank prison. This program is called an out. Prisoners will be taken out to work so they can learn how to make money by working hard. But Norton has taken advantage of cheap prison labor through this program. He has made money by undercutting the cost of skilled labor and taking bribes. Norton gets a lot of the color black to help him or wash his dirty money. Andy puts him in business with a person who doesn't even exist. They make fake documents in the name of Randall Stevens and send all the money to his account. If the police find out about this, they will be looking for a man who has never lived in this world. Next, we see a new prisoner, whose name is come into the jail. But when he finds out that Andy has helped many people here, he goes to him and tells him that he wants to finish high school. so he can have a good life with his wife and child when he gets out of jail. So Andy helps him do well on his JED test. One day, Tommy goes to Red and asks why Andy, who is so smart and kind, is in jail. Red tells him that he killed his wife and the man she was seeing. When Tommy hears this, he stays quiet and doesn't do anything about it. The next thing he knows, he's in front of Andy and Red, and Tommy tells them about a very interesting cellmate he had in another prison. Tommy's cellmate once broke into a house to steal, but when the owner woke up, he killed both the owner and his family. Later, he found out that the couple he killed weren't married and that the woman he killed was the wife of a very successful banker. And in the end, the banker was found guilty of killing the man. So Andy wasn't guilty. Andy goes to Norton and tells him the story when he hears this, but Norton doesn't believe him because Andy helps him wash his money. He knows them all. Andy promises Norton that he won't tell anyone what goes on inside the jail, but Norton sees this as a threat and puts Andy in solitary confinement for a month. Besides that, he wants to talk to Tommy. While Tommy thinks Norton is going to help Andy, Norton actually kills Tommy to make it look like he was trying to escape the prison and was shot. By doing this, Norton is trying to make sure Andy never gets out of the Shawshank prison. Norton then tells Andy that Tommy was shot because he was trying to run away. Andy is lying, and he knows it. He tells Norton that he will no longer work for him. But then Norton threatens to destroy the library, take Andy's protection away from the guards, and move him to the worst conditions. So Andy can't avoid giving in to Norton. Andy is finally free after being locked up for 2 whole months. Andy asked Red if he could ever leave this prison. Red says that he might get when he's too old and his brain quits working. Andy says he's going to leave here and go to Ziethano. He says that this place by the sea in Mexico is very beautiful. People say that a person can get lost there. He says that's where he's going to open his restaurant. He will fix his boat on the beach and then go fishing with his friends in the deep sea. Red isn't sure what to think when he hears this. He says that having hope is a very risky thing to do. It makes people crazy. He also tells Andy that he needs to go back to the real world and that Mexico is a long way away. Andy tells him he is at the moment. He can only go in 2 ways. Either he goes to hell or he keeps living this miserable life. Before Andy leaves, he asks Red to do one thing for him. He tells Red that there is a big tree in a big field in Buxton. Near that tree is a stone wall with a black stone on it. Andy tells Red that something is buried under the stone. Andy asks Red to promise that they will go there. Red asks what's behind the stone when he gets out, and Andy says he'll find out when he goes there. After Norton's work is done, he puts all of his papers in a special place. After putting the papers away, Norton gives Andy his clothes and asks him to iron them and polish his shoes until they are as shiny as a mirror. Andy goes back to his cell that night after this. Red seems to be in a lot of pain because he thinks Andy might kill himself in the morning. Andy doesn't come out of his cell when the doors open, and when a guard walks up to his cell, he is completely shocked. Next, we see Norton take out his shoebox to put on his shoes, but Andy's shoes are not in there. When this siren goes off, it means that Andy has gotten away. Norton goes to Andy's cell to check on him and calls Red to ask him some question. Warden asks Red where Andy is at this point. Red says he has no idea what's going on. Norton gets very angry because no one can explain how Andy got out of prison without anyone noticing. He is angry, so he throws a small rock at the wall, bending it. Unexpectedly, the rock goes right through the poster. I was interested in where the rock went. Jordan puts his hand through the hole in the poster and then sees that Andy has built a big tunnel. When people see this, they are all shocked because that wall is so strong. Without a machine, it would be nearly impossible to dig such a tunnel. But Andy did the unthinkable and got away. After that, all of the guards run away from where Andy just came out. There, they find Andy's old clothes, a bar of soap, a comb, and a hammer that Andy got from Red 20 years ago. This is the same hammer that Andy has been using for the last 20 years to make a tunnel in the wall. He put the dirt that came out of the wall in his pockets and spread it around on the ground. When Andy last worked for the warden, he kept the Bible and all the paperwork about Norton's black money with him. He kept it in Norton's safe. Norton doesn't know this, but Andy wore the clothes that the warden gave him to press and the shoes that the warden gave him to polish under his clothes. Andy also wore them. At night, when all of the prison's lights went out, he came out of the tunnel. After that, he broke the gutter pipe, crawled into it, and got out of the jail where no one had ever gotten out before. Andy crawled to a gutter pipe that was the size of 2 football fields, but he still managed to get out. The next morning, Andy takes Norton's black money to the bank. The money is in the name of Randall Stevens, who is a fake business partner of Norton. Andy used to get this fake person out of jail by signing for them. Andy has all the papers in that man's name, so he pretends to be Randall Stevens and takes all the money out of the bank. This money is worth about $2.95 million, so Andy is not only free, but also very wealthy. Andy has all of Norton's paperwork about the black letters, which he sends to the press the next morning. Newspapers report on Norton's history of doing illegal business, and when he opens the safe, he finds not his papers but the Bible that Andy left for him. On the first page of the Bible, Andy wrote a note to Norton saying, "You were right. This really is the way to be saved." When Norton turns the page, he sees a mark that looks like a hammer. Andy had cut the page into the shape of a hammer and put it in a place where he used to hit his hammer 20 years ago. Today, when the warden went to Andy's cell and took his Bible from him, the hammer was still in the same Bible. Now, everyone knows the whole truth about Norton. The police are coming to get him, but Norton shoots him before they can. Andy's friend Red's sentence is also let go after a while. He gets a job, but Red doesn't seem to care about the outside world because he spent more than 40 years of his life in jail. Red also lives in the room where librarian Brooks used to live, and he also wants to kill himself. But then he thinks about what he told Andy. He goes to that field with the big tree, the stone wall, and the black stone on the stone wall, the same way Andy had said. When Red picks up that stone, there's a box under it. Inside the box are a letter and some money. In the letter, Andy asks Red to meet him at Zitana, a place he once told Red about. After this, hope is a good thing, but the best thing of all, and the best thing of all things, is to never die. After this, Red gets to that place, and when he gets to the beach, he sees Andy sitting in the boat fixing it. Andy dreamed about this place and everything in it with Red while he was in jail. Because of this hope, maybe hope is the best thing in the world. Andy not only built a tunnel in 20 years, but he also got everything he wanted in life.